Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of the Intro to Esports sessions that we've been doing for our Intro to Esports course at Michigan Virtual. My name is Bennett, and I am the host from Michigan Virtual. Sitting alongside me again is Marcus, and our guest for today is Marjorie. Marjorie, will you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Marjorie Morton, and I currently work for Bungie, but I've been in and out of the industry for almost 40 years. So hopefully, y'all have some good questions for me, and you can dig up some dirt or not dirt, whatever.
Thanks for joining us, Marjorie. Really excited to learn, about the extensive career history that you've had with the gaming industry. You've seen it just evolve over time. I think Ben and I talked about, there's an infographic that kind of talks about visually the growth and the ebb and flow of the industry as, arcades start and then home consoles and all of that. So I'm interested to understand, where you had interaction points along that timeline. But before we get into that, just more about you as an individual and where you went to school, beginning of your career. How did you go from Marjorie to Marjorie working in the gaming industry?
It was mostly luck and kind of who I am. As when I look back on how I got where I got, it was really me and luck. I grew up in Silicon Valley, so Atari was down the street, and all of this stuff was happening around me, and we didn't have video games when I was in middle school. The first video game was when I was in high school, which was Pong, and my brother and I convinced our parents to let us have it. And it was on top of your TV, so no one could watch TV, and we just wore that sucker out and became really good at Pong. And it's just nothing, right? It's like ping pong, ping. It's nothing, right? But it's all we had. And I think I was hooked from that moment, and I've never become disconnected with games. I had probably one of the first gaming consoles, which was called Channel F, and it had basically advanced version of Pong. So Breakout, and then like little pixelated planes flying around, and I got really good at Breakout. And I was thinking about this last night because you guys are talking about esports. I was playing Breakout, and behind me was a glass door that opened out to the apartment complex. Well, unbeknownst to me, my mom comes in and she's like watching me play video games, and she goes, "You have an audience." And I go, "Excuse me?" I turned around, there was like 20 kids behind me. Like, "Oh God, look at her, God!" So I thought about it. I go, "Oh, well, that was like, so people have been watching other people play games for a very long time, and they get joy out of it. So that was cool. I was like, okay, I guess I'm really good. I got an audience, and they're staying with me. So,
That's
but
really
yeah, so I was gonna say, so off and on, I've just, I've always been connected. I've always had a gaming system, and yeah. So hope that answers.
it does, and it's really intriguing to me because you may be one of the first streamers in the history of gaming and esports.
Streaming without streaming.
And ironically, when I hear people who object to kind of esports, one of the key things they say is like, no one will ever watch someone else use a computer screen or TV to watch someone else play video games. But here you had someone or a group of kids just watching through your window.
Yes.
You play video games, and this is before Twitch and YouTube and all that. That's astonishing.
Yeah, it was on my TV.
Yeah.
And I was good, and there was no pause button.
Mm-hmm.
So you just had to play until your hands cramped up, and it was all good. Yeah, I think I was 18 or 19 or something.
Same experience with Super Mario Brothers 3. You hook it up to the TV, and if it's on, I mean, I guess it's still the case today with modern consoles, but when it's on, that's the only thing that's on. And I used to have like one of those older TVs where the knob would fall off, so we have like a wrench handy to turn the dial to channel 3. And
yes,
and you're right, it wasn't until Super Nintendo that you had the save functionality. So if you started playing a game, you need to sit down and commit to beating that game, Because if you turn it off, you got to start over.
That was it. Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Kids today don't realize how good they have it.
No, there's so many things. I mean, to go back even further, my first computer was the guts. It wasn't even in a case. I knew somebody that worked for Atari, and they said, "Oh, I've got an Atari 400, and if you want it, you can have it." And it was just the PC board. It had some ribbon cable, and then you connected the whole thing to a cassette tape player. I mean, old school. That was where you loaded the program into the computer, was from the cassette tape. And after about 20 minutes, you got an image. That's it. No game, no nothing. But it was like, that was the coolest thing. And so it's like, we've kind of been chasing for years and years and years. What's the next coolest thing? How can we make that better? And I look at games and how they advanced. Like if you look at like some of the first driving games, and you look at those graphics and the driving experience, and then you look at the next iteration and the next, and it just like, and today it's like, oh my God, I can just watch. People can't watch video games. Yeah, you can. They're gorgeous. And then you have all the beautiful music, and then you have the character development. So yeah, pretty cool.
I've also seen this, and I guess this stigma still lives today, unfortunately. This opinion that girls don't play video games or can't play video games, right? We have a major issue with a lack of representation of women in the gaming industry, holding the controller, or in front of the controller as broadcaster, or behind the controller. And I'm sure you've seen some of that. Was it as prevalent when you were playing Breakout? I mean, you had one of the first consoles. How do you navigate that space of for lack of a better term, I'm just going to say patriarchy. I don't know how to describe it differently.
I guess I didn't. They used to call people like me tomboys, and I don't know if that's a derogatory term now. I try to stay up on that stuff, but it's like, but that's what I was. I was a tree climber. I was out digging in the dirt. And I'd dress up and be girly when I needed to. But I liked technology. And when I realized that I liked it, it didn't really matter if I was a guy or a girl. Although most of the people that I played games with were guys, there weren't girls out there really playing games. And if they were, it was like, I think Ms. Pac-Man might have been the first one that they were really directed at girls. And I thought it was really stupid because it was Pac-Man with a bow on the head. It was like, really? That's what you're going to do? I thought it was ridiculous. But so I didn't really see it. I didn't really experience the kind of being a minority in the industry until I started working in it. And that's when it became a little clearer to me and directly affected me.
Okay.
But not when I was an early player of games.
Okay, so you mentioned that you accidentally fell into the gaming industry. You grew up with Atari down the street. Did you graduate with your law degree and then immediately start working in the gaming industry? How do we get there?
So I don't have a law degree. I'm not an attorney.
My mistake.
I don't even have a bachelor's degree. I started working from the time I was 16 because that was really interesting to me, and money, so I, and like I said, I was in Silicon Valley. So I worked for a couple of chip makers, and I was working for one of those chip makers, and I saw an ad in the newspaper, which is how you got a job back in the day, for a little job at Electronic Arts, who was nothing. Nobody even heard of them. And it's like, and it was really far. So I was in Santa Clara and it was in San Mateo, which really far was like 20 minutes back then. And I thought, well, okay. So I drove up there and interviewed all the way up to Trip, because back then you had to interview with the president. And I had taken a basic programming class because I like technology. I knew somehow in my core but I had to be attached to this somehow because it's fun, it's interesting, it's creative and stuff. So he was asking me, I had brought in my basic programming code so I could say, see, I'm a nerd just like y'all are. And he, he's like, he took a look at it and he's like, well, why do you like computers? And I remember saying something like, well, they do cool stuff, something just like that. And he was like, exactly, they do cool stuff. And he got all animated and got all excited because it's like he saw that I got it, And even though it was an entry-level job as a buyer, I took it and I stayed there like 8.5 years, in and out of a bunch of different jobs and stuff like that. But I didn't have any training or experience for any of the jobs I've ever had. I just kind of talked my way into it, or I answered the questions in a way that they enjoyed hearing. And I learned everything that I know on the job. And I took classes here and there. Like I said, I took a programming class. And when I got into the legal stuff, I went and got certified as a paralegal. But really, everything I learned was on the job.
I'm glad to hear that. That's another one of those kind of I don't want to call it a myth, but a dominant narrative here, even today, and it certainly was 20 years when I went to school, is that if you want to get a good job, you have to get a degree. And you've worked in the industry now, just as one of the legends, or an old school or veteran of the space, that you built an entire career. You're now at a senior operations or senior manager of legal operations with no degree. And that's part of the conversation that I and my colleagues, and if you listen to Sebastian from the first episode, are having. We're not against college. We're all about continued education, lifelong learning. But I believe in this day and age, especially given the inflation that we see today, necessarily it doesn't make that much practical sense to invest 4 to 6 years and go into $60,000 to $100,000 worth of debt to get a degree to work in the space. And you've shown that you can do and have a successful career without doing that. So again, full support of continued education, but it's great to see a living example of someone who's able to have success defined outside the confines of a 4-year degree.
Yeah. When I got started, there was a lot of pressure. Oh, where did you get your degree? Mm-hmm. I think I was employed 23 at EA, and I'd say more than half were Ivy Leaguers, Harvard, Yale, all and it was very intimidating to somebody like me that took a little community college and that was it. I just worked. I liked having a job. I liked doing that. And school was a luxury. And I came from a lower middle class home, not a lot of extra money for school, no money for school. So it was like, get out there and get a job. I was lucky to have a car. So, so you can do it. There are now more opportunities specific to the industry, education-wise, that did not exist. But those are expensive. It's like DigiPen and other places like that. It's like, if you graduate, you'll probably get a job. No worries there. But I hope you got some fat stacks to pay for it, because it's not cheap. So I think there's ways to get in without having lots of money. I guess at the end of the day, if you've got the drive and the passion and you figured out what you like to do or what you're good at and enjoy it, there's always a way. There's always a way to get in.
Can you talk a bit about your day-to-day and I guess more specifically, what percentage of what you do requires hard skills like learning to code and knowing the code versus soft skills like communication, negotiations, team management, things of that nature? Because again, you have a senior role at a very well-respected and successful company that did not require you to have a degree. And obviously you've had to navigate that over the years. But I think that there's not enough conversation in the education space about the importance of those soft skills, which typically don't get taught in college.
No, and I say that often. I use the words they didn't teach this class in school, and I'd say probably on the list, the top of the list of the soft skills is a combination of relationship building and communication. Without those two things, you're going to have a rough time, no matter what your hard skills and education background are, because most of what I do all day long, yeah, there's some hard skills involved. I have to learn. I have to know a whole bunch of different kinds of software packages, and I have hard knowledge in my head about where stuff is. But I have to communicate, and I have to get what I need. So in order to do that, I have to be able to communicate effectively, concisely, and build the relationship with those people so they want to tell me stuff. And it's give and take, and it's experience. It's miles on the car, right? I've been doing this a long time. But a lot of times I can get stuff done that our general counsel can't, because of my personality type and my ability to have conversations and put people at ease, or let them know I'm a safe place. and I'm not gonna, it's like I'm not a litigator. I don't have to be a bulldog. I don't have to be the bad guy. I'm the happy, nice face of the legal department, right? You got questions, come to me, and I'll give you the answers as best as I know. And if I don't have them, I will find them for you. So, hard skills, yeah, you gotta have a certain amount of them, but they're always changing. We're in a high tech sector, right? Nothing stays the same very long. So those soft skills become just more and more important over time.
Okay, and a different kind of take on that. Can you describe the types of tasks you do? Again, we're speaking to middle school students, so we want to give them an idea of what it's like to work in the gaming industry more broadly, but more specifically what you're doing, in case someone is interested in working in that law division or
Yes.
dealing with law.
Understood. And I will say that I could do what I do for any company. I choose to do it in the video game industry for some of the reasons that I said earlier, and I can go into that more. But there are no typical days for me in a legal department, but I am part squirrel, so it works out really well. I get bored really easy, and that's how I finally got focused in the legal area, because stuff's always changing. Every other job I ever had, it was like, okay, got it, mastered it, next. And it hasn't happened. And I've been doing legal work for 15, close to 20 years. So it's really cool. But a lot of what I do is work with different systems. For example, contracts. Okay, we need to get a contract signed. So I'm having conversations with attorneys. Is this going to work? And software, right? So I have to build these software systems and make them friendly. It's hard to explain. Any kind of systems and software that a legal department uses, I've got my hands all over it. I also have, I do all of the e-discovery. So let's just say we get sued and they say, okay, if you look at politics, they go, okay, we want all your email, right? I'm that person. They're going to come to me and I'm going to get in there and I'm going to do the discovery. And that requires some hard skills, using keywords to find the emails that you're looking for, right? I want everything that says game within 5 words of, car, or, whatever. You can build these things, but that is a hard skill. That is something that I did a lot of, and I know how to do it. But that's just one little tiny piece. The next thing is we're going to get a complaint from the Attorney General's office. Okay, what do we do with that? Okay, what's the complaint? Okay, which department do I have to go to find out what actually happened with this person? And then there's, okay, Bungie wants to open up remote working in a new state. Okay, well, we have to go to the Secretary of State, and there's tax repercussions. So there's so many different areas of a legal department. And I do everything pretty much that an attorney doesn't do, and kind of some stuff that they do. Don't tell anybody. But yeah, so it really differs. So you really kind of have to have those an aptitude for picking up and running with new pieces of software.
Mm-hmm.
I do that a lot. Oh, there's a new piece of software. Microsoft just came out with a new thing, so there's those skills. You have to also have the ability to train others and communicate, because you can't continue to do everything yourself. That's another piece of it. But yeah, there's a lot. It's really hard to describe. Sometimes I describe what I do for Bungie as the triage nurse in an emergency room,
mm-hmm.
right? So it's like, something comes in to an email. Okay, oh, this is an emergency. We got to get this to the specialist right away. Or no, this is okay. You're going to sit in the waiting room for a while,
Right.
Or whatever, determining, and sometimes answering immediately. Oh, I know exactly the answer to your issue. Take 2 aspirins and have a nice day. But that's what keeps me here. It's constant. There's no dull days. There's a few, and when we have a dull day, we all get nervous. Like, wait, what? There's nothing happening.
Yeah.
It happens like 3 days out of the year, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned something that Ben and I have talked about, kind of this reoccurring theme about the importance of continued education. I know I mentioned it, but you mentioned it in your own day-to-day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have a specific skill set, and you're having to constantly reinvest time into understanding the new responsibilities, because as you mentioned, we're in a tech ecosystem and technology is always evolving. And so
Yes.
The opportunities and the challenges are constantly evolving. You have to be able to adapt to those. I wonder, are you still actively playing video games? And if so, what are you playing now?
Oh God, it's embarrassing. I don't play anything really popular except for like maybe I don't know. I play like match games, and I play stuff that I can get in, play, and get out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm more of a, I guess, Nintendo type game player. So Mario Kart, Animal Crossing, all of those kind of games that I can get in, play for a while, and leave. I've tried to play Destiny several times. I really suck at it. I want to be good at it, but I also don't want to have to round up 5 of my friends to create a clan and go out and do this campaign. It's just like, oh my God, it's just way too much for me. And I didn't come up playing those kind of games. It's like, I played Doom when it first came out, but that was on my PC. There was no other people involved. You just like pointed, shooted, walked through the hallways, it was all good. Now it's like a huge thing, yeah, I don't know. So it's like, I play simple in and out games, but I play games every day.
I'm glad to hear all of that. That you're still playing actively. For some reason, there's another weird stigma that like people who grew up playing video games, now they're older, magically just stop playing games. I don't understand really kind of the logic behind that. But that you also mentioned mobile games, and students, if you're listening in, mobile games make up almost 60% of the global industry's revenue. So if you think at a macro scale, that also impacts esports. And then you mentioned the ability to just jump in and out of a game and not spending time or not having the bandwidth to invest time in something like an RPG. And I've personally experienced that. I used to play tons of RPGs. And now, I've got 2 kids and a third on the way here soon. And between everything else I'm doing, I just can't get like invested into an RPG. I need something that I can play for maybe 15, 20 minutes. If I'm lucky, an hour or two every few months. And that's all that I have the time for. It's great to see that the gaming industry has the diversity of content and experiences, so that there is something for everyone. I can't say that about esports, but the gaming industry does a great job of doing that.
Yeah. And I'm glad that they keep coming up with stuff that I enjoy playing. But I do go back from time to time. I'll get on Steam and I'll download an old game just because I have fond memories of some of the older stuff, and I'm really good at some of them. It's like the new ones. It's like, yeah, it sucks to suck, right? You know, it's like I want to be good, and it's just like there's so many people that are so much better than me, and I'm a little tiny bit competitive. So
I think it would be great to see, and I keep pushing for this, generally in the ecosystem, and I guess more specifically on LinkedIn, and no one's done it yet that I've seen properly, like a age bracketing, right? So anyone who's my age, I play against someone who's in my age bracket. You play against someone who's in your age bracket, and then I think, in theory, that generally level sets so that you don't have these outliers where like you're trying to play against a community and you're being matched against someone who's 13, right? Because there's clear evidence that like people who are younger have faster reaction times, which is an advantage in certain games. But if you're playing with people who are from your community or your demographic or whatever that may be, I think that creates an even opportunity to be competitive, where if you put in the time, you now can then kind of rise through the ranks and I think have a more enjoyable experience. What are your thoughts on that?
I love that idea. I really love that idea because the other piece of that is in a lot of the games is you have online chat, right? And that's like a big complaint that happens that we get is that, somebody outside of the circle comes in and, just starts punking other people or I don't know. Just to come back to answer your question, I think it's a great idea and I would utilize something like that. And it's also a relationship building thing. The community within the game. My son's like entire circle of friends has been generated by playing online games. And so if I could say, okay, I want to play with players that are like me, and you limit it however, age, gender. I don't know if I'd want to do race in there because that's weird. But because it's like I don't care.
Yeah,
age would be a good one.
I think age is probably the safest one, and I see the point that you're making. You don't want to create echo chambers or exclusive is the word I'm thinking for, exclusive bubbles, because I think that there is value in diversity in the wider gameplay experience.
I agree.
I think that's the challenge there, the opportunity and the challenges. How do you create kind of these micro ecosystems where people feel like they have an opportunity to excel and succeed in, let's call it esports, without creating, again, I guess for lack of a better term, segregation.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And you kind of, and by doing that age gating type thing, you're not leveling the playing field, but you're making it more fair. Like you said, it's like you get a 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old. Yeah, their reaction times are lightning fast, and then you get some old lady like me on there going, I can't, dying. They keep shooting me. Okay, regenerate. Yeah, that's no fun. So it's like, yeah, I'll go play with a bunch of people my age and we're all like kind of sucky and it's more fun and you learn because of that, or you're allowed the ability to learn. Whereas if you're playing with people that are so much better than you, it's not fun. It stops being fun. And that's probably part of the reason I stopped playing Destiny. I've had many people say, oh, I'll be your Sherpa and blah, blah, blah. But then it comes back to what you said. It's like, yeah, but I got to commit 3 hours. It's like minimum 3 hours. It's like old timey tabletop games. I mean, it was just like, yeah, I played once. I won, but it's just rolling dice and measuring how these little guys move. It's like, no, man, I want to go outside, or I want to, I want to go do something else. I did that. Cool. I like painting the miniatures. That was fun. But yeah, it's the time commitment versus what I get out of it. And whatever I'm made of doesn't get a lot out of those large time commitment games. I'll probably play a game for hundreds of hours, but they're all for like 15, 20-minute chunks at a time. So
that's the reason that I don't play Risk. I love the concept of Risk, but I don't have 5 hours to. I don't.
No. And you don't want to leave your family and your significant other. It's like, what they used to call them World of Warcraft widows. And yeah, I was married to somebody that, they just disappear into the manhole and or the man cave. And yeah, it's like, where's daddy? Oh, so it's like, it's fine. You do that every so often, but yeah, it can be, it can affect the people around you in your life. So, and that on my scale of things that are important, it's a little higher than playing games. So.
That speaks to work-life balance. You work at, you talk about, and I hope that there are some examples, and if there are none, maybe we shift very quickly to another topic. But do you have examples of what work-life balance looks like for in a company of Bungie's size? Again, kind of speaking to the students, and I want to not just kind of create this rose-colored glasses perspective of gaming and esports, but help kids who are thinking about they want to play video games understand what that experience really looks like. A lot of kids say, "Oh, I hear being a QA tester is fun. Let me do that." That's great on the surface until you've actually done that and you're jumping over the same rock for 4 hours trying to figure out how you get stuck in the rock. So if you could share about work-life balance or anything else about that you think is relevant.
I think, and again, this has come with experience that I've got the viewpoint that I can look back, and they did crunch way back when. Okay. But even way back when I was like, I don't know, I think I was like 22 when I started at EA. I knew my limitations. I knew that I did my best work from this time to this time. And once I got past that line, the quality of my work went down. And honestly, I'm done. I worked a full day. I'm tired. I want to go have the rest of my life, and but I was an outlier. Most people just felt obligated. And so, I've been that way my entire career. It's like, I will get it done. I'm the most get it done person that I know, but I get it done within parameters, and long days don't happen often. They just don't. But that's me. So I would encourage people to be strong and fearless and speak up for themselves. Because that's, that might be the only way that you have work-life balance. The industry's changing. Crunch is not a good thing. Everybody's trying to get rid of it. We don't actually ship physical product like we used to get it into the store by a certain time, but we do have releases that we want to have come out at a certain time. So there is still elements of crunch. Fortunately for me, I'm not in development, so I've been able to kind of avoid it. So I can't speak to anybody that's a developer, a coder, or doing graphic arts or narrative or any of that stuff. But I think you have to have the wherewithal, or at least plan ahead and say, okay, crunch is coming, and set expectations for your manager. Say, do you want my best work? Well, my best work happens here. And honestly, you will probably get more respect from that manager for standing up and setting expectations with them. than just going along and going, oh, everybody else is doing 10, 12-hour days and working on weekends and all of that stuff. And then you see them at the end of the project and they're just frazzled, burnt out. And I've been burnt out a couple times. It's not a good place to be. It is not a good place to be. So yeah, it really comes from within. Don't expect anybody to give you work-life balance. It's not going to be handed to you. So you have to stand up for yourself and ask for it.
That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And I've written code for 15 years and done my fair share of crunch as well. And I agree with you. There's like a certain threshold that once you cross that threshold, the quality of work suffers. And I've even, on occasion done all-nighters writing code, and sometimes it works and many times they don't. But in the cases that ultimately, whatever I write, when I go back and look at that code, like even a day later or a week later or a few months later, I have no idea how I got to that solution and why I chose that approach. And it's barely functioning. It's like magically functioning.
Yeah.
Because if I had like a fresh brain, I would never have taken that solution. And I think it also forces you to start to cut corners just for the sake of time. Like the quality, even if the app is working, the quality of my code suffers where there's not documentation or I'm not doing something the right way, the ideal way, the best practices way. I taking just kind of throwing in a hack just because I know functionally the hack will work and just keep it moving, which is not fair to anyone else working with you on the team who has to then maintain the mess that you've created out of that crunch.
That's right. It also comes back to one of my, I always have like words of wisdom that I'm like dumping on people around me. If you've been around me, I have told you stuff. But one of them is always do your very best. Whatever it is. You got to wash the dishes. Don't be half-ass about it. Do them right. Put them in there right. Don't do them all wiggly-waggly because it's going to, somebody's going to have to see that mess. Yeah. And it doesn't take any more time, really, to do it the best you can. And you will never regret doing it in the very best way you can. And so I think that ties back into what you were saying, is you probably knew, it's 2 a.m. and you're thinking, I'd really like to go to sleep, And so if I I could probably patch this little thing together, put some string and some masking tape on it, and it'll work. I hope it doesn't get too hot and break. But, whereas if you were working with a full night's sleep and looking at it clearly, you probably could have saw past it and saw a better way to do it. But that works in every aspect of your life.
You're right. If you don't do it properly the first time, you end up having to revisit it potentially multiple times. And you end up.
And not even properly. It's just to the best of your personal ability.
Right.
Right. You do the best you can. And sometimes the best you can might not be good enough, but it's the best you can do. So no fault.
Yeah. What other pieces of advice would you like to share with students? That was great. If you have anything else, or would you share with yourself if you were thinking back about starting your career? Maybe some bad experiences you wish you could have avoided?
Yeah. Well, advice. If you want to get into the industry, figure out what you like to do, what you're good at. And that takes time, and then see if those things could be a job. You like math? Maybe you could be a coder. You like to draw? Maybe you could be an artist. You like to organize? Maybe you could be somebody like me. Everybody has talents. And usually those talents can be connected to a job. So it's like, that's something no one ever told me. It was like, okay, you got to go to school and then you can be back when I was coming up, it was like, there were this many jobs for women. None of them I wanted. I didn't want any of those jobs. So like, oh, I want this job like this guy over here has, So, so figure out what you like to do and what you're good at. The rest kind of will fall in place. Then find people that do those jobs. Seek them out. It's easier to do now than it did back in the day, right? It's like, oh, I really like this guy's art. I bet you he's on Instagram or something, and I can start having a conversation with them, find out how they got where they are, and ask them questions. You may not want to be that person. They might have some stories for you. So you got do your homework. Do your homework, and you can find a way, and then you build relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've helped a bunch of people over my life, and I hope to help a bunch more. So everybody you meet might be somebody you can help down the line, or somebody who can help you open a door, make an introduction, because a lot of this happens that way.
Yeah. Ironically, we're even having this conversation because Bennett reached out to me on LinkedIn. We didn't know each other personally or had never met in person. He just frankly, a stranger reaching out to me on LinkedIn. We had a conversation. I take that same approach that you have, where I think business is fundamentally about relationships, about people. So even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes, I try to make at least a little bit of time to at least say hello and understand if there's any there. And if not, if I can point someone in the right direction. I can't help everyone, and no one has enough time to help everybody.
No.
But just being willing to be helpful with no expectation of return. And ultimately, here we are now with the privilege of having this conversation with you, Marjorie.
Yeah, and I'm here because of Gianni.
Yeah.
So and I met Gianni actually sought me out when I first started at Bungie.
Mm-hmm.
As in his current role, he's trying to sell me something, right? And I don't know. We knew right off the bat. It's just like, I kind of like you, and you kind of like me, and then we became friends. And then it's not going to matter what either one of us do in our life. Well, we'll always be connected. And so he brought me in. And he told me about this thing, and he goes, "Oh, you should come do this." So,
that's another great point about how long the value of relationships can be, right? Where again, if you're even, hopefully you're doing it authentically, but sometimes you invest into someone, you might not get an immediate return on that investment if you're expecting one. But with enough time, most things happen to be reciprocal.
Yes.
And again, you having just a sales related conversation, you are now a speaker here educating all of these students.
Yeah. I mean, I have no expectations. I don't have any expectations with any of the relationships that I might foster. Mm-hmm. But when a question's posed or an issue, you kind of go in your Rolodex. Nobody knows what a Rolodex is. In your brain, and you go, oh, I think I remember. And that's why I like LinkedIn, because it's just like almost everybody I've ever worked with, I've got connections there. It's like, oh yeah, somebody knows how to do this, and there's nothing more satisfying. Well, maybe there's some few things that are more satisfying, but it's very satisfying to help somebody out. Mm-hmm. More so than getting helped out, honestly. Yeah. And you also asked me if I had advice, if I could go in the go back machine and do it all again, other than investing money in certain companies, which would have been great. Was I wish someone kind of took the being a female layer off, and just said, be fearless. You will rarely get in trouble for being fearless. Mm-hmm. Ask those questions, even if they sound in your head like that was a dumb question. There's no dumb questions, and you can't get to a yes unless you ask a question. You might get told no and have the door shut a million times, but you're never going to get a yes unless you initiate that conversation and ask for what you want. Again, you might get no, but you're never going to get a yes unless you ask for it. And I didn't. I just sort of kept stumbling ahead, and I got squished a few times. There were some opportunities that I tried to get, and I got squished, mostly because I was a woman. And back then, as is today, I mean, it's a male dominated industry. It's getting much better. Bungie is doing a lot to diversify its workforce. So it's nice after all these years. I'm seeing it's like, okay, there's people of color here. What's going on? There's more women. There's folks from all over, and that just makes everything better because you want your games to appeal not just to this little tiny little group. You want everybody to go, oh, look, there's a character that looks like me.
Mm-hmm.
So we have inclusion groups, all kinds of inclusion groups, and their voice is included in planning meetings. Mm-hmm. So for character development and design and all that stuff. And so none of that existed. So it's encouraging, and I'm very encouraged and happy about where the industry is going, at least from where I sit.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's important, and I say this, and Bennett's probably seen me say this on LinkedIn. It's not just and I didn't get this phrase myself. I heard it from Keisha Howard, who ironically we're not related. We just happen to have the same last name. But she says inclusion is not just a moral imperative. It's a solid and strong business strategy. Because to your point, if you create authentic representation within a game, then and you put that game on a shelf, someone who's walking past the shelf may see the game and see themselves in the game. And now they want to stop and pick up the game and learn more about it. My daughter was watching this, I forget, it's called Sea Monster or something on Netflix. It's a kid-friendly movie. And the little girl looks like my daughter. She's like, and my son is like, hey, let's watch the movie with Maddie in it. Like they recognize it. And my son is 3, he'll be 4 in October. My daughter is 5, she'll be 6 in February. But that's the importance of it, is that if you are authentic in representation, people now have a reason to engage. And now that's more eyeballs on the game or whatever the content is. Potentially that's more tickets sold to events. That's more people buying the game. That's something that I talk about regularly. That's the difference between the $180 billion gaming industry with 3 billion gamers, right? And then esports, which is just over $1 billion industry. If you look at who is represented in the gameplay and who's playing, it's night and day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. And that carries over to outside of the gaming industry as well, right? Mm-hmm. And you're seeing more of that in film and television. All of that, like you said, it's like your daughter recognized someone that looked like her on the screen. Yeah. And it's like everybody should be able to do that. Yeah. There's I just saw something on TV about is it Korean or Filipino? Filipino, I think. A new movie came out, and that was the lead actor's point of view. Is like there's no movies out there with a Filipino cast, and what it does is it shows that our family and our culture really ain't different from yours. We might serve a couple little different dishes, but the aunties fight. It's just different. But people need to see that, and for far too long it wasn't considered. I don't know why they haven't done it forever. I never understood that, but fortunately, I grew up in a diverse neighborhood, and that's what I'm accustomed to. So whenever I go anywhere that's not like that, I'm like, what's wrong with you people? It's like, come on.
We're getting here to the top of the hour, and quite candidly, I'll have to leave here in a few minutes to go pick up my kids from school. So first, I want to thank you for making time to speak with us and sharing so much tremendous, valuable insights and information and advice. Is there anything that you want to leave the kids with? And then after that, if there is or isn't, how can people get in contact with you? What's something important that you're working on that they can support? How can we invest back into you?
Well, I'm not specifically working on any particular thing that anybody could support, but Bungie has a nonprofit arm called the Bungie Foundation, and one of our primary focuses is on kids, and we also, so if there's a disaster, like we did a bunch of stuff for COVID. Before that, it was the wildfires in Australia, and so we do stuff in game, and there's also direct donations, but they do a lot of good work, and including a lot of local good work with our Girls and Boys Club here locally.
Mhm.
Gianni keeps encouraging me to do something more public, start streaming, and my son actually has offered to like help me. And it's just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, you know. And Gianni's like, you'll be great. You'll get an audience, you know. So
You play Pong.
I don't know. It sounds like fun. It sounds like fun to me. So I may have something in the future, but yeah, I can shoot my email off to you guys if anybody has questions about the industry then or now, or anything related to how I kind of came up in Silicon Valley. I feel very fortunate that I did that, being the person that I am, versus if I was in Wichita, Kansas or something. I don't know. Who knows what would have happened to me. So yeah, I will pass that along and strongly encourage you to hand it out to anybody who has a question or field the questions. I don't know how y'all do it. So,
Okay.
but yeah, it's been a pleasure. I had been nervous about this, but I had nothing to be nervous about because you guys are both lovely humans. And if you ever need if you ever need someone like me, please reach out. I'll be happy to engage however I'm able to.
Thanks for having us, Marjorie. And on top of all the great insights that you've given us today, you were the first person in Michigan virtual podcasting history to reference money as fat stacks and dishwashing as I think it was licky lacky, as in how you do it. So I wanted to highlight that and thank you for that. I will be taking those phrases with me and using them in the virtual and real world going forward. So thank you.
Please do. Yeah, just put a little credit down the bottom. You know, that Marjorie.
Absolutely. And of course, if anyone's watching this and wants to sign up for the Intro to Esports course, there will be a link for it in the comments below and in our other podcasts as well. And we like to do this like we're streamers. So you're getting ready for your streams. There's going to be live drops, things to
I can
enable.
do
So
this, and I can do that. Oh,
absolutely.
wait, not that. Do this.
The emojis are going to be good. Thank you, Marjorie. Thank you, Marcus. And everybody, have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.